Hi, everybody. I'm going to recap day 7 of what occurred and the morning of day 8, what just occurred this morning. All in preparation for closing arguments this afternoon in the case of West Virginia, who is prosecuting Natalie Cochrans for the murder of her husband, Michael Cochran. So if you want to hear what went down on day 7 and 8, stay tuned. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Listen, before I forget, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode, especially since a verdict is going to be coming up here probably later today or sometime tomorrow. In any case, what happened on day 7? We're going to hear from 2 defense expert witnesses, both forensic pathologists who say the exact same thing. We're just going to sum that up really quick. But we're also going to hear from Natalie Cochrans' family physician. What does he have to say? Did she have breast cancer? And then this morning, the state put on a rebuttal witness, and that rebuttal witness, again, was the lead investigator for the Ponzi scheme and for this murder case. And he had some interesting text messages to show us. So we're going to get to that. So on day 7, 2 forensic pathologists. One man, he was old. Oh, I'm old, but this guy was old. I keep doing forensic pathology for more than 40 years. And he said at death, Michael Cochran was diagnosed with profound encephalopathy, so brain swelling. So what caused that? We don't know. And they didn't find anything on autopsy. When he died, he passed away 5 days after February 6th. He passed away February 11th in hospice with Natalie at his side. And they didn't know what causes encephalopathy, so they did an autopsy. And the medical examiner who did that autopsy, his conclusion was, I don't know. It's inconclusive. There's always a cause of death and a manner of death. The cause of death is like, what was the mechanism? Was it, heart attack, stroke? In this case, he couldn't tell. Inconclusive. Now, there's a couple more. There's 2 more. There's 2 exhumations of this man's body from a crypt where there's differing opinions. But in any case, this expert said, well, in addition to that, the manner of death is, homicide, suicide, natural. In this case, unknown. So after 7 months go by where the feds are investigating this Ponzi scheme, they moved the court. They asked the federal judge, I think we need to exhume this man's body. Something's fishy going on about this death. And the judge said, okay. So after 7 months, they had Michael's body exhumed and they tested again. Now he had some heavy decomposition. There was mention that he might not have been embalmed properly. I don't know nothing about that anyway. So heavy decomposition. And one of the things you would want to test at autopsy is his pancreas to see if, what was going on. Did he have a tumor? What caused this low blood sugar? Well, the pancreas, it decomposes very, very quickly. It's one of the first organs to decompose. But this expert that the defense put on said, but if he had a tumor, tumors are very slow to decompose. So did he have a tumor? Did he not have a tumor? The 7-month one was inconclusive. Don't know. So then 4 years later, the defense decides they're going to exhume the body again. Well, actually, the prosecution said, we're going to exhume this body again and let our expert take a look. Now you've got heavy bug activity, decomposition, and yeah. And that expert said homicide. So this expert by the defense was here to say, yeah, there's no way he could have said homicide. Like, if you're going to say homicide, you better have some way to legally back that up. and he didn't. So this doctor said he could have been a head injury. Natalie gave 3 different interviews about what happened in the kitchen the day he collapsed. One of those interviews, she said he hit his head on the countertop. Now, it could have been granite, could have been corian, I don't know. But you hit your head on either one of those high-end countertops, it's going to leave a mark. But we know that his CT scans were negative. The ones they did initially, the ones they did at all negative. Okay. Then it could have been seizures due to some unknown medication. But interesting, it came out on cross-examination. This doctor did not know anything about the enclopaphene citrate. That there were 3 vials found, 2 at the home of Natalie Cochrane, the insulin and a steroid, I think. But there was an additional vial that Natalie found and delivered to Michael's parents, the enclopaphene, which could, if you take it, lower your blood sugar. But we know that what was in that vial was tested, and it wasn't enclopaphene. Well, this doctor didn't know anything about any of that. He didn't know anything, and he didn't have any opinion. So he said his ultimate opinion was there was no way to figure out what happened. And then they bring in a second medical examiner, forensic pathologist, and she basically says the same thing. Yeah. But what I thought was interesting on cross-examination of this first witness, Dr. Dragovich, the state brings out a draft report. I got a draft report here. So when he finished reviewing all the records, he wrote up a report and he sent it over to the defense counsel. Well, somehow that came out in discovery. I don't know how. It's not something I would have produced, but as an attorney, because that's work product, I think. But anyway, I'm sure that was argued. So this draft, apparently the lawyer went through it and, made some notes on the draft. So he had the copy with the notes and kind of suggesting like, they're trying to tell you what to say here, right? And so the defense gets up on redirect and walks them through all of the notes. The first one was like, you wrote February 16th. It was supposed to be the 6th. So I was just correcting some dates. Yes. And then there was, at one point, he used the word infant when he meant adult. He doesn't know how that could have happened, but, and then the final thing was he was asked to provide more detail regarding the prosecution's expert witnesses, none of which changed his opinion substantively. They're just asking for more detail, correcting errors in the report. So it was really much ado about nothing in front of this jury. So I didn't understand the point of that. Then the next witness was a doctor from Access Health. That's the company that Natalie used to work at when she was a pharmacist up until 2016, 17. He's a family physician, and he, at one point, he said he did take care of Michael. I don't think he did anymore at this point. But on February 5th, his patient Natalie came to visit, and she had some flu-like symptoms, some coughing, head congestion. So he gave her a steroid boost, which he said is just a pill. And he admitted that could have raised her blood sugar. And yes, that insulin would have lowered that blood sugar. So her request, in other words, that the neighbor bring over some of her son's insulin because she was not feeling well and she thought that would help, is reasonable. It would have lowered her blood sugar. Yeah, that's reasonable. Okay. So he was then asked, he also treated Gavin, the young man next door who had diabetes. Natalie had called his mom to bring over the insulin. That's in one of her interviews. But they also found that insulin vial in her house. And then she says, we had it there for Gavin because he would come over for dinner and when, if he needed. So this guy explained, first of all, Gavin had an insulin pump. The only way she would have needed to use insulin is if the pump ran out of insulin, and then you could refill it with what was in that vial. that would have been appropriate and reasonable. So it would have been reasonable for her to have insulin in her home in case he came over and had a meal, and or he got called by the school. She got called by the school and his insulin pump was empty. She could run over and fill it for him. Interesting. Which is it, Natalie? Did you have the insulin there or did you not have the insulin there? Okay. So he was asked about the cancer. So at one point, there was a concern that she might have cancer. She had some increased white blood cell count without really any explanation that he could find. So he sent her over to Duke for a second, to work her up for cancer. Never got any results back. He requested them, never heard back from Duke. So did she not go? Because we haven't seen any Duke records. And I got to believe that if they existed, they'd be part of this case. He never got the records. So did she have cancer or did she not have cancer? So what is the jury doesn't know, because it hasn't really been brought out, and I don't know why it hasn't been brought out, but Natalie had been texting friends and family that she was undergoing chemo and radiation for cancer. And if she really did have cancer, has it gone untreated for 6 years? She's looking darn good for somebody who's had cancer for 6 years without treatment. I think we can safely say she didn't have cancer and she was faking it for sympathy with her investors, because we'll come to find out later in today's show that she used lots and lots of excuses to put off paying these investors. So that's really it for the defense. So Natalie chose not to testify. She had said she was going to, it changed her mind. It's a good thing, because she would have been buried, absolutely buried with the Ponzi scheme stuff. And yeah. So she does not take the stand. So the defense rests. Prosecution says we've got a rebuttal witness. So this morning, this rebuttal witness takes a stand. After they work on jury instructions for most of the morning, they bring the jury in and they have this rebuttal witness. And it's the same guy we've already seen twice. He's the lead investigator. He's the one sitting at the prosecution's table. He did the lead investigation in the Ponzi scheme and in the murder case. So the purpose of putting him on the stand, if the stated purpose was to rebut what the children had testified to. So the first thing was, well, why didn't you interview the children? You never interviewed those kids, did you? No, we didn't. Why not? He says, because at the time they were like 11 and 13 or 10 and 4, they were young. And I was investigating a Ponzi scheme, which I wouldn't expect these kids would have anything to add to what I was investigating. And then the second thing would be they were young. And he would want to do it in the presence of an attorney or with permission of the parents. And so those are some of the reasons that he did not interview those kids. So then this prosecutor brings out all these text messages. They had her cell phone confiscated pursuant to a search warrant, and they downloaded, through the Cellbrite program, all of her text messages, phone calls, all of that. And he goes through a series of text messages that basically show, even before and after Michael's death, she is putting him off and putting investors off. So she was like running the operation, not Michael. That's kind of what they wanted to show. So I thought this was really interesting. The first set of text messages was to her friend, Stephanie Hamilton. I didn't get the date, but I'm pretty sure it was February 6th of the day he collapsed. She's offering her friend medical contracts. Listen, I got a chance to invest in this contracts. One's for surgical masks, one's for betadine swabs or something. Are you interested? Interesting, huh? Then April of 2019, after Michael's death, she's texting back and forth with her sister, Wendy, who was already an investigator victim. And of course, the defense objected to the use of the term victim. So she's an investor, and she was offering her more contracts. Then they put in a whole series of text messages between Natalie and Michael. And one was dated August of 20. Well, they were all between August and February of the day before he collapsed. But in August, she's texting him and she's showing him all these awards from various contracts and what she's listing the dates that they'll pay out. He was probably expecting, where's my money? Where's my money? Where's our money? I want to go to Louis Vuitton. So in October, apparently one of her excuses to Michael was they've decided to do an audit. And so we can't get paid out until the audit's complete. So in late October, she texts him and says, the audit is complete. All of our money is going to be available on Monday, October 29th. Well, that didn't happen because then the government shut down. Yeah. So then there was text on January 30th of 2019 to say, the shutdown's been resolved. Our checks are on the way. They were expecting, our checks are en route, by the way. 4.8 million tomorrow. Oh, this was in another text, February 4th. 4.8 million tomorrow, February 5th. And then 23.8 million February 6th. So this is why the prosecution believes on the morning of February 6th, if they had flown to that Bank of America interview, things were just going to blow up because that 23.8 million wasn't going to be there. Neither was the 4.8. So all of that was to show the jury that Michael was giving the same, he was being given the same information as the investors were getting. There's an audit, there's a government shutdown, we can't get you your money. So even in and then this was huge. Oh my gosh. There was a text message from Michael's phone to a person named Matt McCormick. And it was at 1:39 p.m. And it was said that he'd be available to see him in a few days regarding a firearms deal. First of all, Michael was unconscious at 1:39 p.m. He wasn't texting anybody. That's interesting, isn't it? So following that sort of bombshell, that's crazy. Like, Michael is literally dying on the couch. She's texting people about contracts. She's still running the business while he's sleeping it off. Anyway, if you want to believe her testimony. So the judge has sent the jury to lunch. They will be back. They should be back by now, actually, where they will be read the jury instructions on the law, and then they will hear closing arguments. Now, I will summarize those for you tomorrow. I don't expect that we'll get a verdict today. I think the jury has a lot to discuss and talk about. So I'm expecting probably a hung jury at this point. I don't think they're going to, or not guilty, because we know she's a bad person. They've said she's a bad person. The defense is out of the box. Like, she is not a nice person. She has deceived a lot of people, but she's not a murderer. And maybe they're right, but clearly, no, she's not a nice person. Anyway, we'll talk about that in tomorrow's show. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.